We're going to die and this is just a dream. I thought I'd start the new year that way. And we're going to start by sitting on 2 blocks. Dos bloques in español. And 2 blocks with a blanket underneath the shins. And palms up, thumbs and index fingers touching. Attention into the heart center. And we'll chant to begin the distant future, 2024, what was once the distant future, is as ever the present. And there's nothing we can know about the future because it hasn't happened yet. And there's nothing we need to do about the past because it isn't here, it's gone. So the sense of being present but without attaching to anything at all, to expectations, which may be present. We're not suggesting that expectations shouldn't be there, or memories. And non-attachment, it's worth saying, is a form of love. Non-attachment is a form of love because it includes and it allows. So we're going to start the year by chanting, may all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. It's a chant from India. We're obviously doing it in English, not in Sanskritam. It's very easy. If you've never done it before, you'll pick it up super easy. So bring your hands to Anjali Mudra at the heart center. Center yourself in the heart center by taking a few breaths and letting go, which also means allowing as a synonym, which also is love, non-violence, etc. All the things we know about yoga, pretty much as synonyms. So we're chanting, may all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. Take a deep breath in. May all be happy, may all be healthy, may all see goodness, may there be no worry. Now, Om. Om. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And a few of those deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Letting the buttocks release any expectant tension, and we're anticipating anything at all. The only way to ride the waves of the present moment is to be fully open. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally down, and raise your arms up. Urdhva Baddha Angulya, upwardly raising your fingers, and then draw in everything you can from the front, the sides, and the back, lovingly, spaciously, that is to say, without attachment. We say vairagya, sometimes in yoga is one way to put it, which means ragya or raga is desire based on the senses. In other words, wanting for the senses what they're not currently experiencing. So it's not about not having pleasure and having a miserable life. It's not the opposite, but it's something better than either of the opposites. Vairagya is not wanting for the senses something other than what they're having right now. Because there is only right now. There is no future. The past is just electrical impulses in the brain in the present and in other brains in the present. Take a big wide circle. Hands back to the heart. Take a deep breath in, followed by a deep breath out. And let a few of those deep breaths come and go. So before action, there has to be release. Before doing, there has to be the release of pre-doing, or expectation, anticipation, presumption, bias. So that's why we take this time to breathe, to let go. If you're ready, release your hands, change the cross of your legs so the other one is in front. And draw the buttock flesh out and back. Again, the blanket is acting as a brake so that the legs don't travel infinitely down, as it were. It's sukha. Sukha means a good space. A sukhasana, good space seat. Yes, you can use this word asana to mean pose in certain context after the 11th century. Sorry, nerdy already in the new year. Breathe through your nose, draw soft hands to the heart center. Perhaps there's a spontaneous drawing into the heart center, or a falling, or patan in Sanskrit, falling into the heart center. We're effortless. That's why we use this word spontaneous. For there to be effort, there must be an efforter, someone who's making that effort. But the experience of liberation comes from the direct experience of interdependence, not the hypothetical, which is interesting and true. Hypothetically, we can all argue that everything's interdependent, and people do, and there are many books about it that are very interesting. The Secret Life of Trees and various books about mushrooms, how everything's interdependent, and the Self-Delusion and other books like that. But we want to feel it directly here and now. So we can feel, for example, how every part of the body is interdependent with every other part of the body, how the breath is interdependent with the muscles, whether they're holding or releasing, how the muscles are interdependent with the breath, how the mind is interdependent with the breath. Our attitude changes the way our body responds, the way our breath responds, and on and on. We could keep talking like that. Interlace, stretch your arms diagonally down, raise them up. Urdhva Baddha Angulya. Urdhva Baddha Angulya. So making sure there's flow means that we're not myopic. As soon as we're myopic, we forget the spiritual nature of our experience. As soon as we become myopic or fixed on one thing at the exclusion of others, and of course that can happen when we have painful experiences, we can forget, we can be focused on that, and then we identify with that. But if we allow, if we're light, if we're non-violent here and now towards all our experiences, everything's allowed. Painful experiences are allowed, pleasant experiences are allowed, neutral experiences are allowed, because they are natural. It couldn't be any other way than the way it is now. Otherwise, it would be another way. The conditions for it to be like this have already happened. But conditions are changing, of course. Take a big wide circle to release. Hands resting in Jnana mudra, the receptive mudra. Jnana or Jnana mudra, knowledge, same root as the KNO of knowledge in English, or the GNO of gnosis, all meaning knowledge, to know. What are we wanting to know? The field. What is the field and where is the field? The field is this. Where is it? Here. Is it a thought? No. But thoughts move with it, in it, as part of it. Is it a physical sensation? Yes, but it's also all sensations. Can it be grasped? No. Can it be known? Yes. We're told in the text, by releasing the tight fist of grasping, boundless infinity is revealed. Boundless infinity is the codependence of all the experiences here and now, the way the breath affects the body and then everything else. Skin is related to ideas. Ideas are related to breath. Breath is related to atmosphere. Atmosphere is related to weather. Weather is related to what's happening to the sun, and on and on. Release the fingers, breathe through your nose if you can, and remove the blanket. Come onto your hands and knees whenever you're ready, with your heads facing the midline of the room. If you're in the room here, direct. If you're at home Zooming, you have the freedom to have your head facing any way you like. Sit back on your haunches once you've positioned your hands, so you stretch your foot arches, and have a look at your hands as well and make sure they're spread, the fingers are spread. And perhaps you can feel the aponeurosis on the palms of the hands and breathing into that. So there's the aponeurosis on the soles of the feet and the aponeurosis on the palms of the hands, these connective tissue areas. And there, the flow within the aponeurosis, like with any connective tissue, is codependent on a release of too much buildup of fascial buildup. And that happens through movement. So you might be gently moving your bum. For yoga to happen, you only need two things: a rich experience, like the stretch of your feet and the stretch of your hands, and to give to that rich experience that you do through your breath. And that's it. If you just follow that path, and you'll see for yourself, that's all you need for yoga: rich experience, and giving to that rich experience, staying with that rich experience, that meditative experience. Raise up the derriere, bottom, and come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Open up to the way things are. We're not, we might have done many down face dogs in 2023, but this is 2024, which is a hypothetical different year. But of course, everything's a continuum in reality. But still, this down face dog is new. And so it's really important to be open, not to sort of automatically run any down-faced dog programs you might have in your nervous system. Sometimes, perhaps the last time you did it, the heels were down. Perhaps this time they're up. And it's appropriate because we're looking for flow. We're always looking for flow. We're always looking for holism. Take your shoulders forwards above your wrists and take your hands wider if necessary. And take a breath or two. Again, no need for stasis. Unless you want, but this is a meditative response here and now. Listening and responding are one thing. So it's listening /responding. Lower your knees slowly, 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 just to touch the floor annoyingly lightly. We'd like to have more weight there, but we're not allowing it. We're going to lift up one knee, keeping the other one lightly, just grazing the floor. Bring that first knee back down and raise the second. Again, annoyingly lightly for the one on the floor, and back then to Kumbhakasana. Back then to Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And pad your pause, calmness, conditions, connection, calmness, conditions, connection. So a translation of Patanjali by B.K.S. Iyengar, I think is quite nice. It's a practice and non-reaction are required. Practice and non-reaction are required to still the patterning of consciousness. So this is Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyamtam Nirodha. Practice and non-reaction. So if there's not reaction, there's response, which is spontaneous, natural, dance-like, symbiotic. Well done, all. Come down and sit in a kneeling position, for which some of us might find it useful to use a block. Take 2 or 3 breaths with your hands resting one on top of the other. Perhaps there's a little bit of movement side to side, just to massage tibialis anterior on the front of the shins, and gastrocnemius, etc. Breathing easy. It's just a couple of breaths like this, really. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Good. Okay, back to hands and knees when ready. Catch your breath there. That might mean taking a deeper breath, or 2 or 3 or 4. Take the hand that's furthest from me, feed it towards me, just as I'm feeding mine towards you. Palm up, and the other arm extended out. Great. I know I've said it already, but I'll say it again. There's only 2 things you need for successful yoga to happen: a rich experience
and to give to that rich experience. That's all you need. That's literally it. So it's not enough to have a rich experience, but it is enough if you give to that, and we usually give through the breath. So take some deep breaths into your deltoid muscle that caps your shoulder, or wherever else you feel rich experiences. All experiences are rich, ultimately, if you open up to them. But the body is a really good portal because it's obvious that different fascial layers interdepend with each other. It's obvious that the mind is codependent with the body, and on and on. Those interdependence. Retract your extended arm and push to come up, back to hands and knees. Draw 2 or 3 deep breaths and feel loose, able to respond. So you might wag your tail if it comes naturally, or you might just wag it to indicate to yourself that you can if you want. Let's bring the other arm underneath, this time facing away from me. Same thing, other arm. Similarly, once the palm is up, you extend out your other arm to fingertips. If problematic to be on the fingertips, you don't have to be. You can have your hand flat if you prefer. Breath is everything. That's a catchphrase for Vajrasati Yoga. Catchphrase that's true. We don't mind catchphrases if they're true. So meditative response, listening, responding. Jaw soft, eye soft, brain soft, throat soft. Suchirandrasana. Suchirandra means needle and thread, or piercing a needle, threading a needle. Track the extended arm, back to hands and knees. Catch a deep breath, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Again, feel loose, feel light, feel free. Bring the knee that's closest to me directly behind its own wrist, and it's going to stay right there. And the foot's going to move diagonally across the body while you stretch your other leg back. And you come down to your elbows, forearms, and wrists. You might massage it in a bit. Don't hold your breath unless you want to. So keep the jaw soft, massage it in, breathe through your nose, and use it as a portal to disappear / reappear, to Tathagata. Disappear / reappear. So if the mind drifts, that's no problem. That's met with love and non-violence. As yogis, that's how we meet experiences. Allowing, understanding that whatever arises in the mind, if the mind drifts or whatever else happens, or the mind thinks about the past or the future, or the mind is drawn to craving or aversion, there couldn't be any other way. It's like that because the conditions for that to arise have happened. So there's a flow, a continuum, a non-personal flow. Tuck your back toes under, come back up, bring your back knee forwards, back to hands and knees, and take a breath. Again, wag your tail if you want, or move just the pelvis to move the spine. Do take deeper breaths. And when you feel ready, the other knee goes directly behind the other wrist, and there it stays. The foot moves diagonally across the body as you stretch back your other leg. We can call it leg 2. And jaw soft, eyes soft, breathing through the nose. So we feel it where we feel it. Usually there's some pull along the outer leg, the iliotibial tract, through to the buttock. But richness is richness. You know, that's more than pleasure and pain and neutrality. It's the richness, because actually experiences are often mixtures. And so that mixture can be called richness. It's a dance. And of course, as some of you know, in later traditions throughout South Asia, the whole South Asian, not the whole, but a huge amount of the South Asian paradigm was influenced by the Shakta movements, starting around the 6th, 7th century, really beginning to grow around the 8th century, culminating with collections of groups later towards the late periods, such as the Mahavidyas. But what is the goddess? What is the Devi? We know various goddesses, perhaps, like Kali and Lakshmi and Bhuvaneshwari and Umavati and so on. The goddess is all of this. It's that bird singing, it's the rain falling, it's the muscles stretching, it's the breath breathing, it's the mind expressing. It's perhaps why Jesus said the truth will set you free. Okay, tuck under the back toes, coming back to hands and knees, taking another deep breath, coming to a high heel kneeling position, which you can take at your own pace. So that might mean that you stay on your fingertips, or it might mean you bring your hands up onto your thighs, or it might mean that you sit up all together. It's a treat, isn't it, having that bird singing to us? And breathe easy, chest up. So it can be quite intense, especially if you haven't done much yoga over Christmas. I hear your confession and I absolve you, by the way. Okay, enough's enough. I don't want to punish anyone. No, you're beautiful. Let's lift up the knees now. And we feel a stretch through the calcaneus tendons. That's the tendons from the calves to the heels. And then we're going to bring the heels down and breathe easy. So we're up in the squat now, a higher squat. And you might bounce your bum in joyful recognition of that beautiful, I think it's a blackbird. I'm going to guess it's a blackbird. Raising up your arms behind you as if you're skiing. I spent New Year's Eve with some friends, including some Swedish friends, who talked about skiing and how marvelous it is because of the total surrender. That you can't be in the past or the future. Arms forwards and up. Utkatta, take your time, listen and respond. So play with the body if there's any tightness there. Palms facing medially towards each other, or you can turn them forwards, or you can turn them out, or whatever works, actually. You can bend and extend, you can bounce the whole thing. Make sure there's some flow. Stand up when you're ready. Take a big circle with your hands. Bring your hands to prayer position. Deep breath. Tadasana Namaskara. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. Turning towards the front and stepping generously with the hands on the hips. I'm going to stick another radiator on as well, because I can see the coldness of Lynn. Hands on your hips. Breathe through your nose, if you can. Chest lifted. Take a few deep breaths. Tune in on the pelvic floor. Tune in on the pelvic floor. So how do you tune in on the pelvic floor? Movement. Everyone has a pelvic floor, so that's not an issue. For everyone that I can see, anyway. You definitely know if people didn't have a pelvic floor. So tuning in on the pelvic floor, it's the muscles between the pubic bone and the tailbone. Maybe there's some circling or whatever. Tuning in on the living experience, which is a portal to the whole of the field. Every particle is part of the whole field. It's a sort of fractal kind of paradigm. Take in your back toes, that is your left toes, right foot and leg out on the ball of the foot first. Finish off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch is the alignment we're going for. So double check that. With love, spread your toes, stretch your arms, lift your chest, tone your tummy, release your neck, soften your eyes through the optic nerves to the back of the brain. Inhale, exhale, utthita. It's a big stretch for the hamstrings, so take your time. Maybe the first of 2024, maybe your first Trikonasana, 2024. Breathe calmly, investigate. So maybe there's some movement backwards or forwards. It's investigation for the purpose of meditation. Investigation for the purpose of meditation. Meditation is absorption in the field that causes a spontaneous vairagya. Because when there's nothing that's separate to anything else, there's nothing to cling to. Inhale. Come on up. Well done. Hands on the hips. Feet face forwards. Deep breaths. Attuned to the pelvic floor. Back toes in. Front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. Check the alignment. If you're happy and you know it, but only if you really want to show it, raise your arms. And lightly tone the tummy, release the neck. Again, we're looking for a holistic flow here and now. Inhale, exhale, utthita, Trikonasana, listening and responding. Every movement is a dance. Parigraha is empty of grasping, but is that a statement of personal intention, or is a parigraha an expression of just how yoga is, a descriptive, you could say? Of course, it's an injunctive. It is, it is one time telling us that a parigraha is the yogi's approach. And we find it in the Jain tradition, for example. It's part of the anuvratas, or the vows that Jains take. Or mahavratas if they're monastic Jains. But at the same time, it's also what happens if you give to the field here and now. The interdependence of everything. So surrender, fall in love. Surrender, fall in love. Inhale, come on up when you're ready. Hands to hips, feet face forwards, eyes very, very soft, mind calm. Let's take the next pose on the diagonal. So we're going to take the right foot forwards towards the front of the mat and the left foot back towards the back of the mat. The back toes don't have to be turned in for these diagonal poses, but they shouldn't be turned out. So you've got one foot towards me, one foot away, and the instep of the foot is parallel. We're going to track a sort of half circle shape with the knee and retrack it a few times until we feel the pull is coming from the very top of the thigh. We might move the foot to incorporate more fibers holistically. And at some point, you might feel ready to come down to your elbow, palm up, breathing through the nose, perhaps looking up, perhaps stretching up. These are optional stations, perhaps stretching over. So you don't have to, if there's any problem with raising the arm, it doesn't have to raise, of course. And there are variations that are very, very pleasing without the arm raised. I should mention that, such as hand on the hip or holding the inner thigh. Movement might help integration. Don't hold the breath. Do soften your eyes. Surrender. It's like skiing, apparently. Never been skiing. My Swedish friends tell me. Okay, arm down, palm down, pushes the leg, inhale, come up. Hands on the hips.
Swap, 1 foot back, 1 foot forwards. Instep of the foot parallel to the front of the mat. Make sure the back toes are not turning out, but they don't have to turn in for this variation. So already we're open between the front hips, and then tracking that circle or half circle multiple times. For the purpose of integration, integration means surrender to the field, the mother, the goddess, matrika, whatever you want to, praticca samutpada in Buddhism, or in some schools of Buddhism. Elbow down, palm up. Jaw sock. Again, the arm can stay, if you want, on the hip, or reach round, or stretch up and over. Or all of them. Sometimes we get FOMO. We were like, oh, I want to do all of those, please. Yeah. Surrender is enjoyment, beyond enjoyment, bliss. Because there's no self. You hear quotes all the time about this. Kadeem said to me the other day, well, I love the Christmas holidays because I don't have to be anybody. That's what you're always yearning, not to be anybody. Arm down, palm down, press into your leg, come up on the inhalation, feet facing forwards, walk your feet towards each other, shake out whatever you need to do, move in various ways. Have your feet hip width apart, toes spread, shake it off. Whatever it is, shake it off. Raise your arms up, keep loose, keep limber, shake off a little bit so you feel a little bit more dance-like, flow-like, surrendered, spontaneous. So that might be fast or slow. You know, sometimes we're in the mood is sort of sassy, and sometimes the mood is sort of fizzy, and sometimes it's in between, and sometimes it's both. The tummy is toned in and up, and that brings with it the pelvic floor. That nudges energy into the central channel. Sometimes that energy is called the goddess. Sometimes the channel itself is called the goddess channel. One name of the goddess, of course, is Kundalini. She who is coiled up, Kundalini means. Inhale, stretch high. Exhale, bend ankles, knees, and hips and hinge forwards from the hip joints. Play with the pose. Let it have a bit of freedom, a bit of movement. So it could be that you move your knees backwards and forwards, or it could be you move your ribs. You go as low as you want, and that for some people might mean a squat, it might mean a half squat, it might mean moving up and down. It's about the breath, and that's all. Of course, it's crazy paradigm to think bigger range of motion, better yoga. That's just the biggest nonsense ever. Coming back up calmly, integratedly. And another big circle. Hands to the heart. Breathe through your nose. If you can, shake it off. Whatever it is, you shake it off. Bring your feet towards each other. Take a breath or two. Raise up your left heel and feel into your right foot. Raise up your left heel and feel into your right foot. So feeling into your right foot might involve moving it. What we want to do is wake up the muscles that pull up the arches of the feet. So those are muscles up in the legs. And when you feel your foot arches coming online, raise up your left foot. Reach down and see if you can hold your big toe. And other hand on the hip. Breathe through your nose if you can. Opening the inner groin meditatively of the standing leg. Inherently is a meditation, there's no other way. If it's hard to hold the big toe, just hold the shin. That works very well as well. Pull the leg up and out. Can counterbalance with the other arm if you find that useful. And then returning to center and coming down, taking your breath. I love balancing poses because they take no prisoners. Take a breath or two. Shake, shake, shake. So we can get away with, thinking about the past or future and doing Trikonasana, perhaps when you're used to Trikonasana. Harder to get away with that when you're balancing. Let's lift up the other heel and feel into the arch of the standing leg.
the arches, we should say, the medial lateral transverse. So for me, anyway, my arches need to take a bit of time to wake up and move forwards and backwards. When I was a kid, I had pretty flat feet, actually. And it's only through yoga that they're not flat anymore. But, any lift of the arches is beneficial for joints further up, particularly the knee joint. When you feel your foot arches have come online, then continue to raise your leg, reach down, either hold the big toe or hold the shin and breathe through your nose. Draw a soft ISR. That lift, that stretch of the inner groin upwardly. Gluteal crease deep, so your bum and thigh meet. Again, the option to go up and out, and again, perhaps counterbalancing with your arm if you want. That for some people, that's helpful. It's up to you. Marvelous. Turn to center. Good job, Ollie. Well held. Step your feet generously apart. Hands on the hips. Breathe through your nose. Deep breaths. We've had an auspicious blackbird singing to us. We know 2024 started off on a good footing. Back toes in, front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. Check the alignment heel to arch. Be calm. So, any sort of pre-reaction is allowed to sort of express and move on so that we're not dragged by it. We can be open. When we're ready, we bend the front knee. Now, it might take a few bending and extendings because there's so many fibers involved. It's the back leg as well that's being stretched, particularly the groin. But so you can move your feet, you can move your heels, your toes, your legs to get the agreement, which is emblematic of the absorption into the field, into the arms of the mother, the matraka. Matra, of course, is mother. The addition of ka is often used, like we use it kalika, matraka, and so on. And really, it's just a sort of slight softener, matraka. Stretch your arms. Turn your head. This is Virabhadrasana. Vira, hero, Bhadra is good. So play with it, rather than hold it. Use it to fall in love with the goddess. Because the goddess is called the goddess and worthy of veneration because she liberates us. In other words, the interdependent field. And the Buddha was the same when asked, what do you teach? I teach conditioned co-production, pratitya samutpada. Elbow down on the leg. Arm stretches calmly up if you want. That's an option. Up and over perhaps. Or it can stay on the hip, or it can reach round, which they're all good options. Always looking for integration, to find waifs and strays and ask them, what do they need? We don't ignore them, we don't repress them, we don't carry on regardless. If there's a part of the body that's not on board, okay, what do you need? You approach it like somebody who's sort of lost. What do you need? Arm down, palm down, inhale to come up. Well done, everyone. Hands on the hips, feet forwards. Deep breaths. Enjoy your breath. Find the breath, find the pelvic floor, and everything will fall into place from there. Find the breath. Find the pelvic floor. As soon as you find the pelvic floor, you'll find the goddess. You'll find the richness, the interdependence, the dance. Another representation, of course, of everything is the Nataraja, the dancing Shiva, which is a form that we find from about the 11th century. And the dancing Shiva represents everything, but the dancing Shiva, importantly, is dancing. Represents creation and destruction, maintenance, concealing and revealing. Back toes in, front foot and leg out. So turning on the ball of the front foot, finishing off the turn on the heel, should give you heel to arch alignment.
And then when you're ready, bending the front leg, but again, bending and extending, listening to the back leg, adjusting your feet, looking for wordless love. There you go. Hope you got it from that. Wordless love, looking for wordless love in the present, through the body. Not an abstract idea, but through this moment. If you're ready to stretch the arms, you can. It doesn't mean that the pose enters into any kind of stasis, however. Breathing, stretching, eyes soft. You can turn your head. This is a Virabhadra, one of 3 Virabhadras that we have in modern postural yoga. Jaw soft. Hip of the outer leg deep. Groin up, lifted gently. Stretching through investigation. Playing, repetition. Neck soft, jaw soft, brain relaxed. Elbow down, palm up, arm up maybe, or if that's difficult, or just want to do something different, that's fine too. Up and over, perhaps. From pubis, in fact, from underneath the mons pubis. The mons pubis is the fatty tissue that covers your pubic bone. So reaching underneath that, as it were, with your mind's eye and pulling gently up repeatedly. So in other words, we're feeling the attachment of the rectus abdominis. And we're looking for incorporation, always incorporation. Arm down, palm down, push into the leg, inhale to come up, feet face forwards. Breathe deep through your nose, walk your feet towards each other if you can, shake off in any way that you can or want to. Turn to face the midline of the room, s'il vous plaît, whenever you're ready, and feet close or together. So Tadasana, in the middle of your mat, facing the middle of the room. The middle, of course, is a commonly used expression in yoga. For example, the Madhya Nadi, the middle nadi, which we find mentioned, of course, in the Tantra, and much earlier as well in the Upanishads. When you're ready, take the leg that's closest to knee back, behind you. So you're just on your toes. And then lift and see if you can take hold of that leg. Around the shin, ideally. Extend your other arm forward and up. And breathe through your nose. Light tone of the tummy, repeated. And of course, this is more than enough for most of us. You could have your fingers on a wall if it's tricky to balance. But if you want, you can raise the back leg a little more as the body tilts down a little lower. Back of the body deep, front of the body lifted. Good job, calmly coming out. Tadasana, with a keen awareness of the pelvic floor and without holding the breath, letting it go. So those balancing poses are challenging, aren't they? Obviously, we take the same thing in the other leg. So take that back behind you to the toes. Already begin your meditative focus, your loving focus. If ready, raise up and take hold of the shin and raise the arm. And that's more than enough, I think. But if you feel like there's more meditation in opening the chest more, that's fine. Okay, coming out and down, taking a breath, take your feet apart. Generously come towards the edge of your mat. Just let your spine loosen off a little bit. So you could circle the pelvis or move it side to side. You can move your toes, whatever just kind of loosens you off in any way that works for you here and now. Raise your arms up. I think wiggling the fingers is quite nice as you raise the arms up because it moves the nerves and the meningeal fascia that surrounds the nerves, which if everything is hydrated, everything flows. So movement helps this hydration. That's been proven because movement essentially is pressure and release. Pressure and release. So when you move, different parts of the body are pressurized and then they're released. And it's that pressurization and release that increases the amount of fluid that runs through the fascia and increases the glide. And because we're yogis, we know that the body and the mind are one. So you want a non-attached mind, that's a flowing mind. That's what it is a flowing mind. Inhale, lift up, exhale, fold. You can bend your knees if you need to because we're bringing our hands flat to the floor. And taking deep breaths. So the back shouldn't hold any dullness, aching, or pain in poses like this. If it does, bend your knees or bend them more. Or if you feel that with straight legs you might have a chance of releasing the back, which is less likely but possible, then you might do that through things like lifting your heels. So you come, the back releases further as the sitting bones lift. It basically buys you a bit of extra length in the hamstrings, and that extra length allows the pelvis to turn, and it's that releases the back. So deep breath, deep as you can, spontaneously deep. Toes relaxed. How about the toes relaxed? So just come back to that again in case you felt like you had, bigger fish to fry, but it's just toes relaxed. So you might move them. Secret hands, put your hands under your feet, palms up. Hasta, Hastasana. Breathing through the nose, it's a meditation. So jaw is soft. Perhaps there's movement. We're, of course, limiting through this action, we're limiting our engagement with habit patterns. The jaw soft, the eyes soft, the brain soft. Well done, everyone. Release your hands from under your feet and walk your hands forwards and walk your feet backwards. We're going for our most generous stride across the width of the mat, down face dog, with both hands and feet wide. Now, obviously, we all have different dimensions. So wide for me, I'm taking my feet almost off the mat. I've got half my foot on, half my foot off. It may be that feels too wide. Well, you don't have to go as wide as that. Similarly, I've got my little finger side of my hand off the mat because my arms are very wide. So in this wide down face dog, there's loads of space. And just like in Star Trek, we should explore space, the final frontier. Sorry, I mustn't go any further into that. Okay, coming down to kneeling. Again, if it's useful, put a block between the heels and buttocks. And this is Vajrasana. Breathing through your nose, bum relaxed. Eyes relaxed. Deep, natural, honest breathing. We're going to send 5 bija mantras up through the central channel. So this practice is called Uchara. Is, of course, a very visceral way of bringing attention into the middle, which is the visceral correlate to the philosophical idea of non-dualism, which is love. Because it doesn't need things to be perfect or right or pleasant for them to be included. Things that you find unpleasant can be included as well. So we're going to use the bija mantra Hrim, H-R-I-M, Hrim. And we're going to imagine it starting at the pelvic floor when we chant it in a minute, and it pushing up through the extent of the time that we're chanting it. And it pushes up. When it gets towards the nasal area, that's when it moves into what's represented by the M at the end of Hrim, which is a super nasalized nada suchi, a sound needle to penetrate through the final blockages from the forehead to the crown. So we'll do this together 5 times. Let's do the first one when we're ready. Deep breath in. Last one. Right out of the crown of the head. And deep breaths. Take your knees apart, toes touching but not overlapping. You may or may not still require the block. If you don't require it for coming forwards, fine. But if you're on a block, you probably need another block ahead of you for your head to come to. You're coming into a briefish balasana. Deep natural breathing. Bringing yourself up slow, calm and easy. And laying on your back with whatever accoutrement you require to keep warm. It's gone incredibly quickly for me. It's like, what? It just feels like we just started, but apparently, according to my chronograph, it's time for our last and very important posture, Shavasana. So make sure you're warm. If you feel a little bit chilly, don't forget, people have been practicing yoga in Tibet for over 1,000 years, much colder there. Palms up, eyes closed, jaw soft. What is corpse pose? We're told in the text it's melting. It's part of yoga practices known as laya, L-A-Y-A, melting practices. What melts? Borderlines melt. The borderline between you and me, inside and outside, up and down, here and there. Goodies and baddies. Success and failure. In and out. Borderlines melting. Allow from this centered space a little movement, a wiggle of the toes, investigative, a movement of your fingers, some stretches. Let those stretches turn into investigative movements that eventually turn into bending your legs, giving you a further opportunity for a deeper release still of the lower back. So once the legs are bent, we'll scoot the buttocks under. Once we've scooted the buttocks under, we'll take a deep breath in and out to totally release the lower back. Roll onto your side, facing away from the shrine side of the room with your knees up. Tummy soft, soft as it can be. Roll again in your own time towards the front of the room. Gently let in light, color. And gently bring yourself up from the side using your arms. And if we agree with the following statement, we'll say Om together at the end. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see goodness. May there be no worry. Om. Huge appreciation. Thanks very much for coming. Happy New Year. I mentioned the goddess. I should mention Kadine's goddess course starts on Sunday. If you're interested in the goddess course, you can contact me about it or Kadine directly. Otherwise, thanks very much for coming. Great to see you. Happy New Year.
Namaste.
Namaste. Happy New Year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. See you soon. Ciao.